And it is 21 minutes after 8 o'clock. And joining us in studio this morning from Bitter Lake Wildlife Refuge, Don Weld, who's actually with the Friends of Bitter Lake Wildlife Refuge, and Steve Alvarez, who's actually you're the ranger out there, I guess you could say, with the Bitter Lake Wildlife Refuge.
Correct, the public use specialist.
There you go. You get the official uniform and you get the National Park Service. I'm like, I know there's different job titles, but we the public, park ranger.
There you go. That's right. I've been called other things too. So.
Well, in all fairness, people our age, I think it's Yogi Bear's fault.
There you go.
Because Yogi Bear and then the ranger, so we see a guy with the hat and the uniform, we just automatically call you a ranger.
There you go.
I got my hat.
There you go. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you guys doing today? For first off, if there's folks in our community that are not aware of Bitter Lake Wildlife Refuge, we have a beautiful gem just right outside of town here, and I'm guessing you probably get people that confuse Bottomless Lakes, Bitter Lake, and kind of.
Oh yes, all the time.
Bottomless Lakes is an amazing place too, but that's your recreation. If you want to go swimming in the, doing some of the kind of the things you do in a state park kind of thing,
Correct.
Fishing or swimming or camping, that kind of stuff. That's going to be out at Bottomless Lakes. Bitter Lake is a wildlife preserve. Right. There's opportunities to do lots of stuff out there, but it's not come and bring your cooler, have a cookout, and hang out by the lake here. That's not what Bitter Lake is about.
Correct.
So I think I just want to start there and go with the confusing.
Oh, yeah.
Because some people probably show up with their coolers and floaties and like, let's hang out at Bitter Lake. You're like, nah, you need to go to Bottomless Lake.
Years and years ago, they did that.
Did they let people go out and swim out
Bitter
there?
Lake, yeah, but they can't do that anymore.
Well, not as being a preserve.
Correct.
I mean, it's and that's the thing that it's so amazing is it's a whole nother world. Like we think of Roswell and we think of the desert, and then we have this oasis, and it literally is an oasis, just a few miles outside of town here.
Oh, it is, and you mentioned how it's kind of a unique thing that many people don't know about, and it really is kind of a little gem out
Hidden
there.
gem,
Yeah. We've even had people come that visit, and they're totally surprised on what's out there, and we just kind of let the viewers know, or the listeners out there. You may come out there at a time where nothing's happening. It's very, very seasonal. If the water's low and the birds are not nesting or the birds are not moving, you may not see anything.
The animals don't go to your schedule. They go to the laws of nature, Mother Nature, whatever you want to call it.
but it is I've worked for the government for about 30 years, and so this is one of the most biologically rich areas that I have worked at. I worked in Hawaii, I worked in Grand Canyon, and all these places.
That's the shocking part. That's the surprising part, because you think New Mexico, middle of the desert, Hawaii's tropical, and there's got to be much more vegetation. Well, it's all in perspective.
Yeah,
here,
and you mentioned oasis. It is oasis in the desert. There's, just for example, our dragonflies that everybody, a lot of people know.
That's kind of the most famous thing, I think, Bitter Lake's known for.
We have over 100 species, 100 different kinds. I mean, think about 100 different names of friends you have.
I would imagine there's people don't realize there's 100 different types of dragonflies.
Oh,
you know what I mean? They think dragonfly, there's a dragonfly. It's no different. There's a dog.
Yeah.
But how many breeds of dogs?
Oh, exactly.
Same thing with your dragonflies and everything
else. And that's
else.
just one insect. We got tons of different kind of insects out there. And then bird-wise, we have over 350 species of birds. If you're into birding, people just love coming out.
Now, how many? Because for folks that don't know, Bitter Lake kind of serves as a rest area for our nature's our migratory animals.
Yeah, we're on the Central Flyway.
Yeah,
birds kind of when they migrate, they follow like landscape areas, mountains or rivers and stuff, and they got a route. It's a route that they're following.
Sure.
Every year they go north and south, and there's 4 major flyways in the United States. There's the Pacific Flyway along the coast.
Okay.
We got the Central Flyway, which we belong.
Okay.
The Mississippi Flyway, which the birds will fall along the Mississippi corridor.
Okay.
And then we also have the Atlantic Flyway.
Gotcha. Now, does that have to do with like Gulf Streams and stuff? Why they just kind of pick those routes?
Most of it's kind of like land. water access, land.
Sure.
You know,
the mountains can work as a little bit of a barrier, so they
correct.
can fly between the valleys and
exactly.
It's more
Exactly.
geological than
Yeah.
Gotcha.
than wind.
Okay, I just didn't know if the turbulence got too much in these certain areas. So hey, if we hit these windows, kind of like space. You know, when these space shuttles and everything, there's certain windows they can come into the atmosphere, and others they can't. I didn't know if that kind of gotten too sciencey there, but kind of along the same lines.
And we're still learning migration just in itself. If you ever study it, it's a very amazing thing. It's just how do the birds know where to go?
Sure.
You know, what time of year, what triggers them, all that. It's still kind of a mystery.
I'm sure it's instinctual, just like, what tells us as humans, hey, I should drink some water. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I'm sure it's something in the birds that says, hey, we got to fly south now.
Yeah, that's
and we
right.
got to take the route, And I imagine some of it's, some kind of it's probably just learning by the group,
Yeah, they do learn on
Yeah.
birds. It's parents.
That's what the group does. We fly south at this time.
Exactly.
But bitter, like think of it as like your truck stop or something for these animals. They'll come, stay the night or a couple days, and refuel and fuel up and rest and everything, and then head on to their final destination farther south or north if they're coming back this way.
And that's a good point to mention is Bitter Lake is like a stopover.
Yeah.
One of our areas, our main job is a wintering ground, but also we work as a network with other refuges. The cranes, snow geese, ducks, whatever. Some of them will go up all the way to Siberia.
Sure.
We've had some of our cranes tagged, and they were coming all the way from Russia. And so, there's places up north in Alaska and Montana where they nest.
Okay.
But then they come down here in the winter, and we kind of keep in touch with other refuges.
Okay.
To find out.
I'm kind of curious about this. Say when the migratory season comes in, do you guys go out there and see if there's trying to find some of the geese or something that aren't tagged yet or anything and try to get a tag on them? Or is it just saying they're here?
Different projects, research. Sometimes they tag them. It's not a constant thing that we do, but we do monitor waterfowl. We have people in airplanes and on the ground that are checking populations throughout the country.
Sure.
And we share that information. And
I would imagine that's like speaking history and everything, you look at Native Americans and they talk about the way of life of Native Americans, and they are very much a culture that you look at the animals, you see what they're doing. That's an indicator of what's going to be happening next year, weather-wise or things like that. I would imagine, too, for you guys studying that's got to give you patterns on weather and things, too. If you're like, hey, the birds are taking a slightly different route they normally do, they know something we don't about the you know what I'm saying, about the weather or something like that.
It just depends on the species too. There's a lot of times if it's an endangered animal, there's more research done on that particular animal. But there is records of populations of numbers, and then they try to relate it also to what's going on environmentally wise.
Yeah.
So with the whole thing with the climate change, people go back and look at certain animals to say, well, they never used this area before, or they used to use this and now they're not.
Sure.
So that kind of stuff.
Sure. Is there a reason behind it, or they just found something they like better? That's where you kind of you got to figure out sometimes too.
So.
The other side I'd also like to kind of remind folks about is, yes, it's an ecological ecosystem. It's there to preserve and to protect and to study wildlife and things, but it's also a study in human history as much as it is a natural history with the with the Native Americans, the hunting grounds, and even if you want to get into more modern times, when we talk about the history of like the during the Depression and the human history of many of the projects that are done and out there at Bitter Lakes, a lot of that's from that era. In expansion and growth during like the FDR administration and all that. And so there's a lot of history in that as much as there is Native American and, your ecosystem and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right now presently our center's closed.
Sure, because of COVID.
We do have our bookstore open, and we are allowing people Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to come in. But when eventually we open up, we do have an exhibit in the visitor center talking about what you just said about our history that's out there. Bitter Lake used to be a camp for over 300 CCC members during the Depression years.
Yes.
There was a lot of the facilities that were built out there. The housing, the roads. Those were built by CCC and WPA members.
Yeah,
so it's kind of cool.
It is cool. It's very cool. I love all that. So you really get all of that by a trip out to Bitter Lake here. And like you said, it's a little limited right now because of COVID, but we're starting to see things open. Like you said, the gift store. I think you guys opened up like end of last year on the gift store there.
Yeah, exactly.
So hopefully some folks got a chance to do a little shopping and check that
we have
out.
people coming in, so that's
But
good.
if you missed out, you can still come now and do some of that. I would imagine, Don, if you'd like to volunteer and be a friend of the Bitter Lake, you could get access to more places in the refuge that the public normally doesn't get to be
We're
part of.
working on that too. Yep. Yeah. The membership, especially newer members, we're looking at making some specialty trips.
Yeah, I think that's a perk. You know, if you want to volunteer and come, help support, and because that's what the Friends of Bitter Lake do. They help with the conservation projects. They help with fundraising and awareness and education and all kinds of pretty much every aspect of Bitter Lake. The Friends of have a hand in helping out there.
And that's as far as for the Friends. We want the public to realize that with COVID, it was kind of a halt on activities, especially with public use type things.
Yeah.
And Don is right. We're looking right now to get back started on and hopefully things will get
Rebuild.
going.
I imagine there's a lot of projects out there that have been neglected because there hasn't been the manpower to do some of that stuff.
Well, as we were talking earlier before this is some of the stuff got shifted on what we were doing. There was many projects that we didn't do during the time when things were regular, normal hours.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't have the people to do them. And with COVID, that was one thing we had areas that we had not finished and went back and done. For right now, example, our bird blind that we had, we have a real nice bird blind. We tore down the ramp. We rebuilt the whole bird blind. And we'll have that open probably by the end of this year.
Okay.
End of this month.
Perfect time to watch the cranes and cocoa and all that good stuff here in the fall. That'll be perfect for that kind of thing.
So things like that. But again, going back to the rebuilding, if you're retired or you got special skills, if you're a photographer, if you're someone who likes to write, if you're an organizer, we're going to be starting our Dragonfly Festival here very soon. And Don and the Friends and us work together.
So that'll be on in September time frame?
Yeah, we're looking at opening up September 10th.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that's generally right around the time of year for the Dragonfly Festival, which is arguably the biggest event that happens at Bitter Lake.
The public use.
As far as public-wise, it's the biggest event that happens out there.
Exactly. So, and we need people. We'll have people that drive vans for us. We have people that work the visitor center.
Sure.
We have the Friends exhibit area. If you've got exhibits to show, give us a call.
Yeah.
We'll stick you in the exhibit tent.
That's another thing. If you're like a environmental or eco, if you're an expert in animal wildlife, if you're one, and Steve knows the folks that always come out and do discussions, talks. Sometimes it's about photography. Sometimes it's about the butterflies or the dragonflies. There's experts that always come as guests to speak and to give presentations. I think in the coming months, we're going to start seeing that kind of stuff coming back to the refuge.
Correct.
And all of that. And so by September, when we're full swing into, the refuge doing all 100% what it does, they'll be in place and ready to go for that time.
Correct.
So now's the time to start thinking about maybe becoming a friend. Or
if you're interested in even helping right now, Don and our Dragonfly committee, we just met for the first time last Tuesday.
Good.
And we're talking about what kind of venues we're going to have at the festival. We have a volunteer that is an expert in insects.
Okay.
She's going to be coming and joining us, maybe giving tours. So
Good.
If you have any kind of skills, let us know.
The dragonflies are kind of the star of the bug world out there. But butterflies, I know you've been doing a lot with the butterflies over the last couple of years, but there are so many insects and things. And it's really an interesting balance out there because not so much even with the wildlife, but with the plant life and things, because that's a constant struggle because the refuge does a great job of trying to keep plants and things that are native to this region.
Correct.
And we have a lot of plants in this area that aren't native, that are very, very aggressive, strong, hardy plants. The plants that thrive in the desert generally have to be pretty hardy to begin with because they're desert plants.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a delicate balance out there with trying to preserve what's native to this area without it losing the battle to some of these other plants that are much hardier and stronger.
And one of the things we talked about at the Dragonfly Committee was to try to possibly do a program on having your native, like butterfly garden, a person who's an expert come in and talk to people. And you can do stuff in your yard here in Roswell that encourages you.
I think
It's
that would be a
amazing.
great idea.
Yeah.
Like learn some things at the refuge and take that home in your own property
right.
and try to work some of that in. Yeah.
In the past, we've released monarch butterflies during the Dragonfly Festival.
Kids get out there, and that's usually a fun part with the kids.
And
they get
we
to
may
really-
do that again. We're looking at possibly doing that again this
I guess
year.
does it depend on how the numbers are doing and all that, and how many are
And how
are
many
getting
we can get
raised
and so on, right.
Yeah. It's
So-
again, it's all about what's available, and that's true before COVID. That's
Correct.
just how it is.
Yeah. And the whole idea that our friends, prior to the Friends of Bitter Lake and our visitor centers, Bitter Lake was pretty much it was real low key. Nobody, a lot of people didn't even realize what we had out there. Thanks to the Friends of Bitter Lake and the festival, it's really give us highlighted all the unique stuff that's out there, and we're working on community outreach, and that's what this whole
It's a
all
great
about.
way to find the perfect balance because let's face it, you want people to come and enjoy and see and learn all about the great things that are at Bitter Lake.
Correct.
But at the same time, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, it ain't bottomless lakes. It's not the place to go to go camping and drinking and doing all the fun stuff that people like to do when they go out to the lake.
Oh yeah,
It's just not that place. So
you're right. You're right.
And so you have to sell that a little bit because most people are like, oh, going to the lake. Oh, I'll bring my swim trunks and bring my floaties. I'm like, no, different kind.
Yeah, we want to show people, but we don't want damage to the resources.
Yeah, we want to protect and preserve. So you kind of want that balance of people coming and seeing it, enjoying it, but also keeping the reverence of, hey, this isn't the cut-up place. This is a place where we learn and enjoy nature and understand, why we're here and why they're here and how do we get along on this piece of earth and all that good stuff.
And Don could probably talk about how we've in our planning, that was part of the deal, is where we have to make sure we don't bring people. We only have so much parking out there.
Sure.
We only have so much.
Got to find that sweet
transportation.
balance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Because you don't want to disturb the ecosystem, and that's and that unfortunately that's with the best intentions, things like that sometimes happen unintentionally. I would make an argument, and you, I'm sure you got a thought or two on this. I grew up in D.C. area and things, and growing up as a kid, one of the battles, pardon the pun, that people were having was preservation of some of the Civil War battlefields and some of these natural preserves that are out, beautiful ones that are on the East Coast.
Correct.
But because of population and more people and the need for more housing and the need for more of this and everything, those lands, people would go to tour a battlefield and you kind of want the impression if you're in the wilderness or in a place that's, natural. And unfortunately, a lot of these places, you go to Gettysburg and you're seeing this beautiful area, and then there's a KFC like 50 yards ahead of you. You know what I mean? And not that KFC's delicious, but maybe this ain't the time for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like you said, there's a balance. I mean, there's different. Like I mentioned, I've been in this business for quite some time, and there's different kind of regulations. There's different kind of people, how they protect stuff, and it's unique around the whole country how people handle their resources.
And I mean, it's a different fight because we're a lot less urban here than they are back east. So there's different battles, but it's the same thing nonetheless.
Correct.
We live in an area. It's like, we see a hole with some water in it. Let's swim in it. And it's like, hold on, waters are very precious around here.
Exactly.
Some are for swimming, some are for fighting, according to Texas, and some are for drinking.
That's right. Again, just like you mentioned, we are in a unique situation here in Roswell, where only 7 miles away, the community has this really cool area called Bitter Lake.
So get ready and make some plans for the fall to come out and be a part of Dragonfly Festival. Obviously, as we get close to the event, we'll get these guys back on and start talking the nuts and bolts of the event and everything.
And like we mentioned earlier about it's seasonal, for like right now, we have thousands of cranes that are coming in, and they come and roost on the refuge.
Okay.
Come early in the morning.
They're waiting to head north, I guess?
As the weather changes, they'll start heading back.
Okay.
Some of them, the weather's been kind of mild this winter, so they tend to hang around longer.
Okay.
If the weather was getting pretty bad or severe, the cranes would start heading, cranes and ducks and everything will start heading south.
Gotcha.
Just to get away
Are they
from the weather.
I imagine they're a pretty good barometer for that kind
In
of stuff.
some ways, yeah, they are.
know?
You'll see, you'll a lot of times you can plan your bird watching by knowing the weather changes. If you know that a cold front's coming in,
Sure.
they're right in front of that cold front. You'll see birds that you wouldn't normally see coming through the refuge.
You think it's like us where they just have a bum knee or something and so they had surgery and now when it's humid they can tell when their knee hurts. They get some kind of deal like that for them.
But they don't have to have a bum. That's the way they live.
I know how that works. It's like, my knee hurts. It's getting cold. We got to move.
Let's head south.
It's south, that's right. But back again, how you could planning your trip to Bitter Lake. Like October, last part of October, early November. That's when the thousands of
That's
of
the busy season
first
for
come in for the crane. Now we're talking cranes. Snow geese a little bit later, they'll come in, and then if you want to come see the dragonflies, September, September, and then October. Those are probably the peak months to see those. But then springtime, you get a lot of migrant songbirds, and people don't realize how many beautiful little colored birds come through the refuge. And,
Sure.
Just going out there and just keeping an eye on the bushes and the trees, you'll see stuff even in your backyard here in Roswell, you see some people go, hey, I saw this really cool little yellow bird come by my house. And, well, it might not be there in the summer, but it will be there in the spring.
It's doing a little sightseeing while it's in town.
Yeah, we've seen some very unusual birds come through there.
Yeah, I would
ones
imagine.
that aren't normally. In fact, even for that time of year, we don't normally see them in this area.
So when they come like that, is it a 1 and 2, or does it come as a herd?
It varies.
Or a flock?
Sometimes it's a group of them. Sometimes it's only just one.
Okay.
And there's also birding as an activity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people and it's kind of fun if you get into where they call it, you get your life list where throughout your life you're writing down what you've seen, and people get into it so much that there'll be people that'll fly to Africa to see some kind of rare bird that they never
That's
even
amazing.
wanted,
If they find their passion and can afford to do that, God bless you.
Man,
You do it.
But even here, like if they have a deal called the Bird Hotline.
Okay.
And if they say a few years ago we had a bird called a roseate spoonbill. They're normally found in Florida, Louisiana, and stuff. And they happen to, normally when storms, that kind of sometimes brings birds in.
Okay.
They get blown off course.
Gotcha.
And we had these ibis, spoonbills. They were on the refuge pretty much all summer. 2 or 3 of them. And we had people from all over New Mexico coming to see those, So it's kind of a fun thing.
Well, and that's amazing because it's no different than when you go on vacation and travel to look for the biggest ball of yarn. You know what I mean? When people do that stuff,
exactly.
Because it's and in some aspects it's even greater because you're seeing God's creatures in their natural life and habitat.
Yeah.
And like you said, you may never, ever, ever get a chance in your life to see that bird again.
Cool,
and to see and so to me, I equate that to the same thing. It's like you go to, I don't know. Oh, I'm going to San Fran. I've never been to Alcatraz. I've always wanted to go to Alcatraz.
Yeah,
to me, that's the same thing. Just a great opportunity.
And my kids grew up with it so late. As adults, my son moved to Minneapolis one time, and he mentioned something about, hey, he calls me, Dad, I saw a bald eagle fly over right across. I was driving on the highway, and he's all excited. And that's the kind of passion we like.
Absolutely.
To have people. It is cool.
It is very cool.
In the United States, traveling throughout the country, we are blessed to have so many natural resources in this country. It's just cool.
Absolutely. And I will tell you this too, by coming out to Bitter Lake and when these programs are happening and stuff and coming out, it's a lot of fun, but you learn a lot of cool stuff that I think you could serve you well throughout life too.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
During this closure of COVID, we had people coming out, they feel they were trapped and feeling isolated.
Sure.
They went out and drove and got back, just felt good to be out there,
Sure.
So.
But even like the life lessons of animals, like you're seeing them and you're talking, well, see these, like these birds do this and this, and you're like, that's very efficient. Maybe we as humans should do some of these, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
We can learn a lot from nature about our own selves and lives.
Yeah.
And I think Bitter Lake is an opportunity to not only learn about what's here in our own backyard, but also, make our educate our kids, our adults, and everyone to have a little bit more understanding and respect for the place you call home. You know,
and there's so much to learn. I mean, if you're into reptiles, you're into insects, you're into birds. I mean, or you're into rocks or whatever. It's crazy.
I'm kind of curious. We got a little bit of time here. When you talk about some of the Indian hunting grounds out there from the buffalo hunting back in the days. Do they have archaeologists that go? Is there like caves and stuff that have like paintings?
We have our regional archaeologists that go through sites.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, we are kind of sensitive about that because we do have people that go out and
treasure hunter type
stuff.
No, you want
but there is people don't realize in this Roswell area. I mean, we had hundreds of bison all over the place. I mean, they would migrate through here and you could go down certain areas on the bluffs and find still bones and fragments of some of the bison herds that were hunted by natives.
Are any of on the Bitter Lake property there, any of like the caves that they would live in?
We have scattered stuff. We don't have many caves. We have sinkholes. There's sites throughout the valley, Pecos Valley.
And I knew because I've talked to some people. They'll go out to like some of these caves out in the middle of nowhere, and they were like where the Native Americans would kind of use as camping areas while they're on the hunting. And a lot of times they would put their hunting stories on the walls of and talk about the big hunts and things.
Exactly.
So I didn't know if any of that was we don't have any
petroglyphs
kind of migrated down here into this area.
The other thing is to kind of just remind everybody, because there are some people that want to collect arrowheads and whatever. The refuge pretty much is closed to
treasure hunting
access.
And all that kind of
the areas the public can go is on the wildlife drive.
Gotcha.
And when we have special tours, we'll take people behind the scenes.
Although if there's certain groups and special opportunities, you never know, you may get and this is where I'll talk about Friends of Bitter Lake. That's where some of those perks. Maybe there's a project or something that takes you out there and they need some of the friends to go. You get a chance to kind of go behind the scenes and be a part of that as you're serving and doing some of that. So who knows, as a friend of Bitter Lake, maybe you get a chance to go to see some of the parts of the refuge that the public does not.
We've talked about some of the stuff where if some of the members, because we network with other refuges, then you may be able to have a special field trip to another refuge where we'll take you behind the scenes of another refuge.
Sure, and they've got a certain areas they let you in and
we
out.
Might just to kind of but normally it's something that we try as much just the general public to have access to all these things.
But certain areas you want nature just to let it take its course, and you want as limited human contact in those areas as possible, so nature can do its thing without us getting in the way sometimes.
It's like nesting season during that time period, So,
you don't want you want to spook animals and things there. It's a very vulnerable time for them, and the last thing they want is people around them that they seem as predators.
Well, and you mentioned earlier too about how the difference between a state park and a national wildlife refuge, and even when I was a park ranger, where we have different policies and how we work compared to a national wildlife refuge. A national park, if it was a national park, hunting was not allowed. But on a national wildlife refuge, we do have a lot of history with hunting.
Sure,
hunting is allowed there. So it's
a valuable tool for the ecosystem. That's something.
Calling.
I mean, I don't know how many. We hear hunting stories across the internet and all this, and Africa and all that. But at the same time, their hunting has a very important tool in some of these ecosystem things. And matter of fact, and this is something to do with Bitter Lake, but I was seeing a thing about in Africa, how they actually had to hunt a couple of the giraffes in the herd because they were actually hindering the population because they were older but couldn't. I guess the way giraffes work is there's like the male that kind of does its thing with the females, and he kind of collects a group. It just kind of naturally happens. But as some of these giraffes get older, they're collecting, but they're not populating. And so they have to kind of let a new buck sort of kind of step up to the plate. So they will hunt the non-productive one to keep the herd going. And that's kind of some of the tools they use for hunting in ecosystems.
Well, one of the points I was trying to make, just the differences of the different agencies, like National Park Service, you got the Forest Service, BLM, all these. We have our missions and there's focuses, and going back to the refuge system, our focus there is wildlife. we focus on making sure we have the best habitat. We protect endangered animals. That's our mission. Where we do this public use stuff, that's not the priority of the refuge system, but because the lands belong to the American public, we try as much as we can to get the people to be able to see
Where
some of
the state
stuff.
park mindset is this is
it's
public land,
yeah.
but it's here for you to come and enjoy.
Correct.
Leisure.
More recreational use, like you said.
Whereas your mission is we want to preserve it for the education of future people.
Correct.
And so we want it to be accessible to people, but to learn from, not to recreate at. And that's the big difference.
Yeah. And then the hunting part, when you mentioned about the hunting, we have different seasons and different depends. And people always ask, how come you hunt on a wildlife refuge? There's a lot of history behind there. Many of the hunters that in the past were some of the first people to initiate the movement of trying to protect regulations and all that stuff. And then the other thing, too, is for especially waterfowl, hunters have to buy a federal duck stamp. And that's a user fee where that money goes into purchasing habitat for wildlife.
So the money used to buy the licensing goes back to ecological programs.
And then not all animals, there's only certain animals that are hunted, and they're hunted under strict regulations where, we're not advocating to go hunt some rare bird, but that rare bird may use the land and otherwise would not have been protected had it not been for the monies.
And of course, if the populations get skewed there, where now it's starting to impact another animal, then you've got to
do some down.
You've got to do some kind of juggling there to get the balance back in.
Exactly. And it's the same thing with our water use at the refuge. We have to juggle water use for, we have the endangered Pecos sunflower. We have to flood fields because it has to have the water, but then we have to be careful of how we manage for our rare fish that are at the refuge. So it's a balance.
You don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul here.
Exactly. That's right. It's a very fascinating management program.
And obviously it's harder to do that when you just freely let people come in and do what they want there. And that's why you have the permits. That's why you have the things. It really is. At the end of the day, it's there to protect our home.
Correct.
And to educate us better on how to protect our home ourselves. And being a good steward of the land, we're part of the food chain just like everybody else. We got to be good stewards to that. Take what we need, but not take what more than we need, and understand that kind of thing.
And I'd have to say over the years, we have had a really good relationship with the local community. I mean, it's just amazing how much, one year we didn't have the Dragonfly Festival we didn't have enough volunteers. And man, we had people all over. Hey, when are you going to do the festival? Just kind of.
Sometimes absence makes the heart grow fonder a little bit. And maybe with COVID in the way here, that's going to set up for a big fall here where people are anxious. And so numbers might be bigger than normal because they're anxious to come out and participate. And if you've never been to Dragonfly Festival, it's great. I'll tell you, just pro tip, as about a month or two out when we start promoting this event, the sooner you can sign up for tours, the better, because they fill up fast. The Dragonfly tours, the bird tour, the wildlife.
As soon as we announce
tours,
get on there.
They get. We'll tell you how when it happens, but basically get your reservations. It's free, but it fills fast.
The other thing too is if we have any teachers out there that are listening, we'll be starting the Dragonfly poster contest here fairly soon.
Okay.
We'll be getting out the instructions.
So be looking for that in your inboxes and all that soon.
Exactly. Yeah. Because we normally get around 800 entries, and it's kind of cool for the person to win. It's basically K through 5th grade. And
if I remember right, your drawing is like the theme for that Dragonfly Festival.
Exactly. You're right.
And you're on all the literature and artwork and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah. The winner, their drawing gets posted.
Yeah. You're kind of the visual representative of that year's Dragonfly Festival.
And I've run into kids that, like I said, been here since 2000, and they're adults now, and they'll remind me, hey, Mr. Alvarez, I won the Dragonfly contest, whatever,
20 years ago.
It is cool. And we have a bunch of talented kids in our community. Because the artwork I see every year is... I'm kind of like, man, how are they going to outdo that next year? But they manage to every year. They just,
I know you get to see the winners.
Yeah.
You should see all of the ones that
are
we
close.
We just couldn't quite get
Start
to.
the arguments up
Yeah.
on who deserved
Oh,
better.
yeah.
yeah.
This is.
So-
Yeah, and
Well,
there's
maybe
so
one
many
year
good
we'll have
ones.
to do a collage of them and just kind
There
of
you
these
go.
are the
Well,
these are
We
the,
might do that.
we may
the
have to
honorable
get-
mentions.
We might have to get you as a judge. We always try to get different
Ooh.
judges in the
I would love to
community.
do that, but I don't know if I want that kind of pressure. That sounds like a lot
No,
of.
it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of
I don't want to
fun.
deny some kid the opportunity of having an awesome picture. I don't want to be the fall guy. I don't know that radio guy
What do
picked
we
it. I
get?
don't
It's
know.
his fault.
We get 4 or 5 people.
Yeah,
usually
I'd do
to
that.
judge it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
normally about 5
Yeah.
judges. So
Yeah.
it's kind of fun.
I did do it. If you want me to, I'd be happy to do it.
That'd be great. That'd be great. We'd love to have you.
But yeah, so kind of mark it on your calendars. We'll give you dates here, but think about September time frame here. We're start seeing all the and like you said, the fall festivities that are kind of the bigger opportunities at Bitter Lake will be happening this year. So
And you can
mark,
still, and we're open 7 days a week during daylight hours.
Yeah.
You can drive around, and you'll like I said, you might not see something one day, but the next day you might see
Sure.
something really, really
so
cool.
like right now, if you go today, you can go to the gift shop.
You can go to the gift shop on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday,
Okay.
Saturday.
And then is that about it? Can you drive around the
And
refuge?
you can drive. The refuge is
Refuge is open
still.
all the
Yeah,
time.
Yeah, all
So
the hiking
every
trails.
day.
are-
Yeah. So-
Straight light.
But please be good stewards. Stay on the trails.
Yep.
Stay
Right.
on the
Exactly.
pass. The more you venture off, you're going to get in trouble if you get caught. But the more
Yeah.
damage you're doing out there, you really are. You're doing.
And we got a rough officer out there. He's really mean.
Well, I imagine a lot of people just get lost or turned around. And
Yeah,
don't, that's
he-
most of
we
the
know
time.
that.
It's not intentional.
He
They
knows
just kind of
that.
like, hey, what's that bird over there? And they get curious nature. Curiosity killed the cat sometimes.
Oh,
And
The problem is, you get out there, you might destroy something that
Yeah,
we really
that's-
don't
that's
want destroyed.
unfortunate.
You know,
That's the
step on a
part.
bird nest or something.
Yeah, we
know.
know there's so much coolness out there that we want to make sure that your grandkids can come out there and get to enjoy the same experience that you enjoy today.
That's why we call
the-
it a refuge.
Yeah,
Because
And-
it's a way for the animals to get a refuge
Yeah.
away from
from us.
from us. Yeah, they're protected. So we can,
Absolutely. If anybody has any questions or anything, what's the best places to reach out right now?
if you want something to do with the friends,
Okay.
if you want to get involved with the friends, give me a call.
Okay.
575-495-3325.
Okay.
And that phone is pretty much with me, but if for some reason I can't answer or won't answer,
Leave a voicemail.
leave a voicemail. And,
Don will get
and
right
I'll,
back to
I'll
you.
get back to you.
And Steve, anything
If
Bitter
you-
Lake related?
Yeah,
actual?
if you want to contact me, if you're volunteering for like the Friends, call Don. And,
Yeah.
we do have projects that the Refuge does that, from working on a butterfly trail to picking up trash
Mm-hmm.
to help organize things. You can call me at 575-914-3332.
Very good.
All right.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the visit. We'll get you guys in here in the coming. Even if we do something every month or two, just to say, hey, spotlight a certain bird or animal or plant or something out there. Love to do that. That'd be fun.
that'd
So
be cool.
as we get, as you guys get time and availability, love to have you guys do that.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, too.